Donald Trump shocked the political world yesterday by choosing Matt Gaetz to be his Attorney General. That nomination is prompting an absolute meltdown, with the establishment in both parties utterly furious that Trump would pick the controversial Florida man.
Gaetz went to law school but has never worked as a prosecutor. He also was temporarily unable to practice law in Florida after failing to pay his Florida bar membership fees. He is a staunch supporter of the president-elect and could serve as Trump's personal wrecking ball.
The nomination is generating buzz and opposition on the Hill, with some politicians suggesting he might not have the votes to get the job. Gaetz has already resigned his seat in Congress, now without a parting gift from House colleagues. There is a House Ethics Committee report on him involving alleged illegal drug use and also sexual misconduct.
So now social media users are taking to X to voice their frustrations about what they see as a shocking nomination. Never Trump conservative Jonah Goldberg wrote, "I cannot imagine why someone would vote to confirm Matt Gaetz for host at Red Lobster, never mind Attorney General of the United States." And John Bolton, former national security advisor under Trump, went on CNN to voice his concerns. Take a listen.
Well, I thought it was the worst cabinet-level appointment in history until they then heard about the Matt Gaetz appointment. Really, my reaction was that this is like the legend of Caligula, the Roman emperor, who wanted to nominate his horse as a Roman consul. You had to be a Roman senator at the time to be a consul, and it was intended to show how demeaned and degraded the Roman Senate had become. So now we're going to see whether the American Senate can stand up and reject two people who are totally unqualified, unfit professionally, and really lacking in the moral characteristics, the character that you need to hold these jobs. I think this vote should be 100-0 against both of them.
Some people, of course, will consider a negative endorsement from John Bolton to be a positive endorsement overall. Democratic Congressman Ro Khanna also reacted to the nomination on CBS. Let's listen.
Look, people voted for Donald Trump to have lower prices and a secure border. I don't think they voted for the appointments that they're getting. I've worked as colleagues with both Tulsi Gabbard and Matt Gaetz, so I'll let the Senate make their determination. But it's an indication, including of Tom Harmon and also Stephen Miller, of just where this president's going to go. I mean, he is not moving to the center. He's going to his MAGA base. And we'll see if he's overreaching on the mandate that he had from the American people.
Gaetz is also drawing some support from perhaps unlikely places. Glenn Greenwald praised Gaetz' record on antitrust and also pointed out that Gaetz supports a pardon for Edward Snowden. And he wrote, Trump's nominees who will confront the most pushback from GOP senators will be those who scare the establishment most. Gaetz, Tulsi, RFK if nominated, Pete Hegseth, others like that, Little Marco, Kristi Noem, Elise Stefanik, Huckabee, they'll all sail right through. That's a good point. Writing for Unheard, independent journalist Lee Fong says that the left should welcome Matt Gaetz as Attorney General. Here's what he wrote. But for those who have closely followed his legislative career, the Florida lawmaker represents a sharp break from the corporate-friendly orthodoxies of the modern Republican Party. Indeed, Gaetz' elevation will provide sprawling prosecutorial powers for continuing his push against special interest influence and corporate malfeasance. So I was interested to see some love for Gaetz from left-leaning people like Lee and Glenn and others. Zed Jelani as well, pointing out his record on animal rights. He's very for animal rights. And I am pleased to say that Matt Gaetz is also very much in favor of pro-marijuana legalization. Has voted routinely for rescheduling marijuana, taking it off the most dangerous kill on sight anyone who has this substance scheduling that the federal government does. And that would be something that an attorney general more sympathetic to people who grow and consume marijuana on their own property, that would be good. I actually don't really agree with the antitrust stuff that's making the left happy. But I don't know. Where do you come down on this, Niall? I'm assuming it's not going to be very positively to Matt Gaetz.
It is not going to be terribly positive to Mr. Gaetz. Look, there are some spots in his record that I do give him dues for and give him respect for. One being he united with AOC, of all people, in that attempt to stop stock dealing by members of Congress.
Yes.
And I think good for him in that regard. Whether somebody being right on one thing, or I would have no objection to the marijuana legalization thing either, makes them, excuse me, an appropriate or worthy nominee for Attorney General, I am highly more skeptical of. We know the allegations that were made in the DOJ probe. There was to be no criminal prosecution of Matt Gaetz for the suggestion that there was, alleged sex trafficking or sexual misconduct with a 17-year-old. Nevertheless, the House Ethics Committee is still looking into some of these allegations. The fact that the congressman has immediately resigned could well appear to be an attempt to kill that probe, because the Ethics Committee typically ends probes as soon as someone resigns. And I also think, more generally, Robby, with Matt Gaetz, and actually a lot of people in Trump world, there is often this idea that they are sort of the bold outsider renegades. This is a guy whose father was a career politician, was the president at one point of the Florida State Senate, and whose political career has largely been comprised, it seems to me, of trying to attract attention to himself. And, I don't think those are fit qualifications to be Attorney General.
Look, I hear you that he's a bit attention-seeking and provocative and controversial, and maybe that thus makes him not the best choice for Attorney General. I mean, I've looked in an open-minded way at the allegations against him with the sexual misconduct trafficking. I came away thoroughly unimpressed by that case. It had to do with traveling with a 17-year-old on a plane, thus technically over state lines, and that's why that came up. But it was not he was never accused of like chaining somebody to a radiator or something, and it was and also he was the victim of a blackmail, an extortion attempt by a deranged individual who has a acquaintance who went missing in the Middle East and was trying to extort, I think, both Gaetz and his father into aiding in this clearly doomed effort to find this person. It all amounted to not very much. And I years ago I tweeted something along those lines about Matt Gaetz, saying, say what you will, but even if what he's being accused of is true, it still doesn't constitute sex trafficking. And I got screamed at. I rarely delete tweets. I got so much harassment, death threats for that. I deleted that tweet. I never do this. But after like days of people just screaming saying I was making excuses for pedophilia and I was condoning sex trafficking, and it was really, really, I don't often or usually complain about, getting really crazy or unkind feedback on social media. It happens from time to time. That's the role we sign up for.
Sure.
There's no woe is me. But man, was the backlash to pointing that out pretty rotten. So
look. I mean, backlashes on social media can be pretty terrible. One can argue about the definition of sex trafficking and how that is used in the law and crossing state lines. Look, if he had sex with a 17-year-old, which he denies, if he had sex with a 17-year-old, adult men should not be having sex with 17-year-olds. So
sure.
I think that's pretty clear. The other point, in terms of, for example, the House Ethics Committee looking into allegations of illicit drug use, I'm fairly libertarian on drug use questions. I do wonder, though, is the old traditional argument come into play here about people allegedly or seemingly being involved in conduct that would lead them open to blackmail. There was a blackmail attempt, as you say, which was sketchy. But what about if there is actual behaviour that is, sufficiently shameful to provide material for such attempts?
I don't know. He's been accused of some pretty shameful things,
sure.
And he's still
standing.
Merrily rowing his boat. Again, like what if they tank this nomination and then the next person is some, drug warrior, pro-surveillance, Trump has nominated someone who wants to, for a top law enforcement position, who supports a lot of things that not other, on the drug thing, the Snowden thing, the antitrust thing. If you're into that, I'm not. But certainly on drugs, someone who is actually not a drug warrior and wants to move in decriminalization or is more open-minded on these subjects, possibly because they themselves have been is alleged to have been a participant in some drug-related activity, and again is supportive of whistleblower-type people like Edward Snowden. And I know people don't like him for a variety of reasons, and you can say, well, he's going to be bad on things relating to Trump's own alleged criminality, but let's say they tank this, Trump picks some more standard Republican who's still going to end up being soft on Trump's alleged criminality, but is going to be harsher on those issues. That's going to be a shame, honestly.
I mean, I just
on policy, just looking beyond the personality, which I know is hard, which I understand why in this case that's hard to do.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to make an affirmative case for him, but on paper there are aspects of him that I like compared to the other people likely to get this position.
Yeah, I mean, my argument against that would be, while I think it is credible to argue on policy grounds, you say, like, there are things about him on paper that you like, which is fine, but we're not nominating someone on paper, we're nominating the full human being. And I think there are serious questions. Quite aside from these specific allegations, there's just also a question about whether he's, I mean, I just think he's a fundamentally unserious figure who has been nominated to an extremely serious position.
Like Marco Rubio is a serious figure, but I totally disagree with him, and I think his agenda is bad, and I think he will be harmful for the country's foreign policy. He's he's not involved in crazy theatrical antics, but honestly, I care more about what I think they're actually going to do at the end of the day.
Yeah, but I mean, I just think Gaetz is going to do whatever Trump tells him to do, which I'm not thrilled about either.
All right, well, tell us what you think about this appointment. We've got a lot more to talk about on Rising Today. Stay with us.